All right, here we are. Here you are. It's a new year. It's a new episode. A new you, right? Here it is, the latest episode of the Dan Time Podcast. I'm your host, Dan McArdle, and I sincerely hope you've enjoyed and been following and getting something out of these latest episodes and guests. And for the musicians, checking out their catalogs and following them on social media, Dan Brody last week. How about that one? Veteran musician out of Melbourne, Australia. What a fun conversation. Great depth of character that Dan possesses, always mixing things up musically. If you missed that one, do yourself a favor and play it next. Now listen, this show is nothing without you, so I really appreciate you checking into it, making it a part of your rotation. Okay, let me tell you how you find me, not how you get to my house, but how you can reach out to me if you have statements, requests, if you'd like to file and escalate complaints. dantimepod@gmail.com. That's the email for the show. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or you've got a friend, a family member who you think would be a great participant in this project, you can send that person's name or your name my way. You can also follow and message me on Instagram, X, the YouTube channel, and Facebook. Just search @DanTimePod. All right, freelance photographer Andi Rice of Andi Rice Mediaworks is my very special guest today. And I don't say that just because it sounds good. You're going to love this guy. We met nearly 25 years ago when each of us worked at record stores just down the highway from each other. It was part of a franchise. We'd send customers back and forth, and we formed a bond back then. There was a fondness that we shared in that time period, and as is often the case, you drift apart. But you don't mean to drift apart. That person just goes one way, you go another, you're young, and but you keep up with each other. And this is a guy who followed his dreams. He's still on that journey, but he took the leap at a point in time. He didn't know how it would turn out, but he bet on himself, and he's got an incredible story to share. Andi has photographed some of the biggest cultural figures of our time: Prince, Willie Nelson, B.B. King, the President of the United States, the Vice President, Governor Ivey of Alabama, current GOP candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, and so many more. His work has been featured in major publications. Andi was also asked to speak at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention. The list of people who have given Andi ringing endorsements for his work and his character literally goes on and on and on. But at his core, Andi is just a regular dude. He's a husband, a dad. He celebrates people. Andi, he helps people. He helps those who can't help themselves. We get into that in this conversation. And check this out. He enjoys an incredibly diverse range of music. We'll talk about this. We talk about it at such length that I've created a bonus episode just for you guys on top of this one to capture all of our far-ranging chat about bands and whatever else. Okay, folks, remember, follow Andi, check him out, look him up at Rice Andi, A-N-D-I. And remember, I think I discussed this a week or two ago. You don't have to be named Dan to be on this show. If you know me, that's already a box checked. But how about this? Andi, in a 4-letter name, has got the letters of the name Dan in there. It's just kind of mixed around. So that is a special quality that really gives him icing on the cake. All right. Without further blabbering, here it is. I know you're ready for it. I am too. It is Andi Rice time. Andi, let me just say it's great to be talking to you again.
I'm so glad you called, and I'm so glad you invited me as a guest on the show. And I love not necessarily talking about myself, but I definitely love telling the story of how I got where I am now. And I'm not finished. I'm just ready to kind of keep going, man. So
Well,
I'm on.
we are fellow UAB grads, like
Yeah,
my
man.
guest last week, Emily Haynes Cook. Andy and I, you're a few years before me, but we're both Blazers, and
Go.
go Blazers. Tell me how you got from, we'll touch on our history. You were in the corporate world for a while, and then you had this knack for photography. You probably experimented a little bit or did some stuff for fun. How did you decide to make the
Man,
leap?
well, photography for me was a gift that my mom gave me, so, she didn't want me to, I was pretty wild little kid, and just all over the place. And, probably before ADHD was a big deal and before people even knew that it was a big deal, I had it, I'm a 70s baby. So mom never wanted to medicate me, because she felt like the drugs would change me. She was happy with who I was as a kid, so she didn't want any chance that glimmer of that shine from her son would change. So to settle me down, I'll never forget, it's Christmas time. The summer before this Christmas, we got Atari 2600. And she was just like, okay, that'll settle. And that summer before that Christmas, we had a huge family reunion, and my dad had a Canon 81, or the family had a Canon 81 camera. And somehow through all that good time in the family reunion, I think an auntie or something, or during a hug or something like that, spilled a drink into that camera. And my dad was bummed. He bought another camera, of course, and that camera just kind of sat around for months. And long story short, I went to the downtown library, and that's these kids these days don't know about microfiche. But I found all the information to Canon, and I wrote them this choppy letter and talked them into sending me copies of the schematic for that model. Took the camera apart and cleaned every inside. It was sticky, and cleaned everything up, put a battery in it, and I was gold. I had a camera. And so mom was a hobbyist, and she kind of they were amazed that I got the camera. My dad was kind of like, dude, I wish you would have told me that before I bought the camera. So that's basically how I got into photography. My mom was a hobbyist, and she kind of taught me photography. She would, buy me film, or I had a couple of odd jobs as a kid, and we'd get film, and basically every week, I'd shoot a couple of weeks, 36 roll or 24 roll, and then we go and see what I got. And she kind of critique me and kind of teach me along the way. That's pretty much how I got into it. So I've always been into photography, even before I took a break from the corporate world to do it professionally.
Now, when you decided to just go headlong into it, did you have any reservations? Were you kind of hesitant maybe for a period of years? Like, I don't know, I want to make this work, but I don't know how successful this is going to be? Or did you have the mindset like, I'm just going to blow it out of the water?
Oh, man, it was pretty scary because I had just left a nice position with a big telecommunications company, and I'd worked there for years and got a pretty good split. I took my benefits and I just kind of ran. But, my dad worked a corporate job. My mom was a teacher, so it was just in my soul. It was just in my blood for a while. And I kept working in corporate, even though I had this thing on the back burner that I really wanted to pursue. I just never did it, just because I didn't have the confidence that, there's no benefits package, there's no insurance, no health insurance. And those are things that you always get when you have one of those, corporate jobs. So I actually left Bell South at the time and took a job at the bank in fraud, so I still had in my mind, this is the way to survive. This is the way to be professional. And man, that job in the bank just, man, it sucked my soul away. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a great gig, but one day, it was actually the last day of my 2 weeks notice for that job. I got a call from UAB and something happened to their photographer. I'd done some things for UAB in the past, so they had me on their list, and they called me and I was there, and the rest kind of is history. There's some stuff that happened in between that really made me solidify my decision, but then I can get into that too.
Isn't that something how things happen? Like you said, the last day of the 2 week notice, you're sitting there at the
And
desk, at the keyboard.
yeah, with my box, like this will be over soon, and they called, and actually my boss at the time was just like, man, get after it. On my last day, he was just like, there's no reason to miss that.
You usually find people in some of those places where you're not really, you just know you're not destined to be there for the rest of your life. Have you found like good friendships, good people in places you don't really want to be, but they're rooting for you? They know that you got a knack for something else, and they're like, just like you
That's
said there.
There are tons of people there. Like I said, my old boss, because I would plug in for Christmas parties and celebrations of our team's advancement, with pictures. So they knew that pictures were kind of like photography was my thing. So it's always great that, it's a delight to have those people around that support you like that. And that happened. That happened at that bank job. So they kind of knew and they were ready. So
When
it
you have
wasn't.
that passion, it's probably hard to keep it a secret. You end up talking about it or showing someone something that you've been working on.
Oh yeah. I said I was doing all that stuff they were paying me to do the stuff, at little events and Christmas parties and any kind of like corporate celebration that we had for our department. They'd be like, Andy can take the pictures, and they throw me a little cash for that. But it definitely was very obvious that this is something that I needed to pursue to make me happy.
Well, flash forward, several years, and now you're taking assignments from New York Times, Washington Post Magazine, Bloomberg. Could you have seen some of this unfolding a
I,
few years prior? Did you know that you had the goods once you got going?
I knew that I had the goods, Dan. I just I wasn't in contact with the right people. But there are a lot of things that came positive from that pandemic period, if we can remember 3 years back, but that was one of them. All of my corporate work had kind of like grind to a halt because nobody was gathering. All corporate events were done, so nobody was working in these big corporate boxes anymore, those were my playground, all these corporate headquarters around town. Those are the places that I go to set up for headshots or set up for corporate sales meetings or end of the year celebrations that a lot of the corporations around here have. And when COVID hit, they were just saying, no, we got to stay in place. The only thing that stayed relevant and stayed active was the news. And, I hate to be a broken record, but you just got to be ready, man. And I got the call. I think it was Wall Street Journal. It was Wall Street Journal, and the assignment was basically about the way that a small town in Alabama is handling the pandemic and the distribution of the vaccine and just all of that stuff. And basically I got that call, and that was my first assignment. It was in March of 2020, and I was super green. There's a process for that level of journalism, and I had no idea how to do it. I kind of got lucky, did some research, and nailed it. Just kind of one of those things. It's like once you do it good, all those guys associate with each other. It's a big club. The guy from Wall Street Journal's worked at the New York Times before. He's got friends from college that work at the Washington Post, and that they ask the question, who's your guy in Birmingham? Who's your guy in the South? You have a good photographer that we can depend on. Because it's all about timeliness. It's all about you got to get that stuff in. As soon as you hit the button to take the picture, they want it. The editors want that stuff because news has to be present and recent. That's pretty much how I got into working for some of the big publishers.
Yeah, Andy, on that note, where people ask, who's your guy in Birmingham? Folks listening to this podcast right now, you always hear me. It may sound like I'm just flattering the guest. I'm just saying, oh, you're the best guy in this department or whatever. I really mean it. And don't take my word for it. If you connect with Andy on LinkedIn or just visit his page, scroll down to the testimonials, the comments on Andy and his work, his character. It literally goes on and on and on. I was so impressed here, Andy, the people that have worked with you and the things that they've said. I'll just read a couple excerpts. Heather Durham, Heather Durham Photography, she said, he's early to every assignment, establishes an excellent, quiet, and friendly rapport with the client. I fondly refer to him as the lighting ninja. They're just talking about there's some kind of a little niche area here, but because he moves around quietly, quickly, and accurately to make sure every shot is ready to go to keep the shoot running on or ahead of schedule. These are people that you've assisted on various
man. We
locations.
can talk about that.
Art Maripol, he's unfailingly polite and respectful of everyone. I'm just not even talking about your work, but just your character. I've known few others in or out of my work life with a better outlook or more humane heart. Andy, that is just gold. And I think back 25 years and I'm like, they're spot on. That's why I remain friends with this guy, why I wanted to talk to him today.
So let's talk about that. I started, when I knew this was something that I wanted to do, I started looking around town at, people that I admire, looking at their work. And there is a photographer in town, and she's still, forced to be reckoned with. She took me on as an assistant. And basically that was one of the best moves ever, just because you're basically being paid to learn. And it's hard. It's hard work because you're not the star. You're there to kind of help the star be the star, So, there's a lot of loading in and loading out and a lot of heavy lifting, and you've got to learn light because, the key photographer, and I say I've done both roles, the key photographer needs to stay with the client. And I can't tell you how invaluable. I started that role with her here in Birmingham in 2011, and I worked with her for 7 years on every shoot, on every assignment, big headshot installations to celebrity, shootings. So I have to stress that was one of the most important parts for my development, is to learn, and like I said, you get paid to learn how to do your job. It was an amazing experience because she didn't make any mistakes, but you are responsible because you're the assistant, but there's a lighter load because you're still learning. You're still just kind of watching. But after a while, your key photographer, they depend on you to kill it so they can kill it. So assisting, it's slowed down a whole bunch for me. I'm at this point in my career, I cherry pick the people that I want to assist, but I'm not too proud, like that song, The Temptations, not too proud to beg. If Annie Leibovitz comes to town and she gets my name, I'm assisting just because. I'll get a chance to work with one of the greats, and that's been my attitude for assisting. So I'll say that to any, aspiring photographer. If there is somebody that you can learn from and they're willing to pay you to do it, go for it, head first.
Andy, and you must have also, in those moments, had the presence of mind that, if I make a good impression here, now I've got a strong contact. Do you always think about building out your network when you're in those situations? Like, hey, I need to really shine on all ends here, or does it?
Yeah, because in the early years, you're helping these folks, and they're only one person. They, some of these folks had small crews or a small group of people that work for them, but mostly in the freelance world, it's just you. If you're lucky enough to be able to pay a staff, it's still small. But like I said before, it was a very important part of my career path because with these small crews, these folks can't be everywhere every time. So, and that's when the magic starts. That's when if you're assisting somebody and you consider them your boss, or the lady that I worked for in town, she was a big time photographer. She still is. And she just took me under her wing and just taught me just so much about the business. It's not a secret. I'll reveal it. Her name was Lisa Cole, and we're still amazing friends, and she's still an amazing photographer. And, you know, we still, anytime we have a chance to talk and catch up, we do that. But she referred many jobs to me in the beginning, you know, that she just couldn't do or wasn't interested in doing. And that started building my customer base, you know. It's twofold. You learn, you get paid to learn. These key photographers that you're assisting are going to get busy, and they're going to start throwing you I call it scraps, but it's not. These are all top tier jobs that my key photographers knew that I could crush. And from there, man, that, you know, you start developing your own rapport with these people, and they start talking about you and spreading your name, and it's just it kind of keeps going and going and going.
Andi, I want to get into some of the subjects that you've had a chance to photograph, and I love how you say on your Instagram that you're a photographer of people and a photographer of things.
Yeah, man.
So in a minute here, I want to get into some of the high-profile subjects, but man, you've documented, you know, the plight of people that live in, thousands of people that live in public housing, and they're just, I think you said, dangerously close to some of the most polluted places in the country. Yeah. And they don't have the means to get away from it. And so you've really brought pollution and some of these crises that get buried under the big headlines to the front. How important is it to you to have that be part of your body of work?
Man, it's really important. I think that some of these folks don't have a voice, and that's what I use my camera for, is to kind of like, you know, speak for them. The particular project that you were talking about is happening right here in Birmingham. We have heavy industry on the eastern side of town, Collegeville area, and man, it's just nasty out there, and that stuff's seeping into the air and seeping into the groundwater, and these folks need, you know, somebody to tell their story so that they can either get out of those areas or so that they can, you know, superfund and fix those areas. So when I got that assignment, yeah, I took it very seriously.
Yeah, I think it's easy for people to just not really have the awareness.
It's nasty out there. We're walking around. I had an assistant, and we were walking around in the grass, and there was this fine dust in the grass, and I think I threw away my shoes or something. Like, I don't know. It's a terrible situation, but it's gotten better, and a lot of those folks have moved out of those areas. But for a while, it definitely was something that folks was turning a blind eye to because they just weren't aware. But I was really happy to explain and tell those stories for those people.
Now, last year, Andi, on two separate locations, you had the opportunity to photograph President Biden and Vice President Harris. President Biden in Hope Hall, I guess he was giving a speech at the Lockheed Martin weapons plant.
Yep.
And Vice President Harris in Selma. Everybody listening, I got people all over the world, all over the country. This is not, I don't take a political stance. I don't endorse candidates. None of that stuff. But Andi, just the opportunity, whether this person has an R or a D next to their name, how cool was it to, how did you get the assignment? I mean, just.
Like I said, you just do really well the first time, and the good stuff will always follow. I've actually.
Let me ask you this. Were you particularly nervous on these assignments versus some of the live music assignments that you've done, or how does that work?
Because we're talking about government and Secret Service, and I'll be the first to admit that I don't really do New Year's resolutions, but my social media presence, realized personally that's something I need to do more of. And I haven't even showed, like, I've taken portraits of the vice president and the president several times, and that's something I'm going to do more of in 2024. Just be more present with my social media posts and stuff. I just haven't. It's published, but I just haven't put it up on my personal social channels. So after the first time, they do all the background check, make sure you're not crazy, and after that, man, it's just all love. You get to know their press secretaries, and you get to know their marketing people. And there was a time near Chattanooga that the vice president, she was doing a thing on green energy, and near Chattanooga in Georgia, there's a company that does they do solar panels, and the vice president toured the facility, and like most of the times, not all the times, but this was a time that I actually got to ride in the press pool. Now that's where it gets really cool, because you're in line with Secret Service, all the security. You're flanked by a Black Hawk helicopter flight. You look up to your left up in the sky, and there's a guy watching Black Hawk. It's pretty impressive. I didn't do a lot of video personally and put a lot of that stuff up, but just because of the security nature, and I don't want to disclose a lot of that stuff. But man, it was fun. Like, just tear-assing through town in a 10 vehicle convoy, with security all around you and super mean guys that you only see in movies. It's pretty amazing. You get there, you jump out of a all-black Tahoe that's probably, got some kind of armor around it. It's pretty amazing, man. I'll run to those assignments all the time just because the treatment is just top-notch.
Are you looking around, like I said, some of these faces and these people and thinking, really? Like, I'm here?
Yeah.
Or do you flash back to the college days or the music store days or the corporate? You're just thinking, wow.
I'm just glad. I'm really looking around, glad I didn't get into too much trouble back in the day that wouldn't have allowed me to do this kind of stuff. Because the background checks are pretty extensive. I mean, you're right. At times, I could have reached out and touched either one of them. So.
Are you actually? You're not in the same vehicle as the vice president.
No. They're like 4 cars ahead. They're in the same group of vehicles, that I'm in, and there's a nicely dressed Secret Service guy. I'm in the back seat, and there's a media person sitting next to me, and a driver, and a Secret Service guy.
Wow. How can you tell that these guys, the Secret Service detail, that they are always on, like they are ready for the worst thing to happen at any moment, or do they seem like regular guys?
There are different tiers. The guy that's in the vehicle with me, he's got a suit on, but you just know that that suit got pockets. You know. But those, I'm sure they put the Warriors. They're somewhere else. These guys are the guys that actually one of the guys that on one of the last assignments with the vice president, he actually grew up in Shelby County, near where I live. I live in Shelby County in Alabama now, and he told me his whole story. He was a sheriff. He was a Shelby County sheriff before he, went back to military and started pursuing Secret Service. So, you just never know. Those guys are all hardcore guys, and yeah, you know that they're super trained and they're super together. And if something hits the fan, man, you know that they're ready. I wouldn't want to be the one on the business end of that.
All right, so Andi, I understand in the 2022 Alabama GOP primary, you had an assignment to cover the candidates in that race, the incumbent Governor Ivey, who's since reelected, and Lindy Blanchard. I guess she was the former ambassador to Slovenia. How was that experience, man?
It's pretty cool, man. Like I say, these folks are celebrities and politicians. They're people just like all of us. They were real approachable. I didn't really have a lot of words for Governor Ivey and the other candidates just because I was busy shooting pictures, but all of our interactions were really calm and chill, you know. I really mostly interact in those situations with the marketing representatives that work for those candidates and those figures. But man, I love all of that type of work. It's different. It comes along with the territory, and I dig it.
Now, also, we're in the middle, I mean, unless you're living under a rock, we're in the middle of a presidential race, and as we discussed, you've had the opportunity to photograph the president, vice president. I understand you've also been able to shoot Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yeah, he came through Birmingham recently as part of, campaigning, part of the GOP campaign. And of course, as you may or may not know, one of the main debates was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama this year.
Right.
That was pretty exciting. He had a meet and greet at a resort here in town, Ross Bridge. It was really cool. He's got some interesting views. He's definitely a very electric orator. He knows how to grab a crowd. And I don't know if any of these people were naysayers or if they were just, there because they were fans of him. But I enjoyed listening to him. But of course, me shooting or covering an event like that, it's not personal. I'm just there to document the event. I'm a photojournalist, so my job is to take pictures so that the people that want to learn about it or were not able to attend the event can see, what type of imagery was going on during the event. So
you could have, if the president had been Bernie Sanders instead of Joe Biden, or it was during the Trump administration and you get the call, you're taking that assignment. Yeah. That's not something you turn down.
It doesn't matter. It's just, I have a job to do and I take it seriously, and that's the way I look at it.
Well, Vivek, his policy positions aside, you can definitely tell that when the lights come on, he's someone that plays to the cameras. He's probably a good subject in that respect, right? Where he's got the smile and the flash and the big smile.
Yeah, he's got obvious camera presence. And I don't know if that's just something he learned during his campaign or it could be just something natural. It seems like that's just him. I think he has background in technology and business, so he's just probably just used to presenting his ideas to a crowd. He just knows how to grab a crowd's attention, and he does that well.
And you can contrast those events to, like I said, the local level where Governor Ivey, for instance, she didn't campaign hard to become governor. She became governor via a resignation at the beginning, and then she campaigned for re-election. But, she's not someone that's trying to get out in front of the camera. It's just because of the position that she's in. She's going to be photographed. There's going to be a need to document her appearances.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get a chance to meet the governor or Ambassador Blanchard?
I got a chance to meet Ambassador Blanchard. She's really sweet, nice lady. Like I said before, my words are always pretty short. So I had to do a couple of portraits of the governor. And like I said, I just keep it chill. It's always, very respectful. And thank you so much for just taking the time out to just sit for me for 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever has been, set aside for me as a photographer. So I just let my subjects know that I appreciate their time. They didn't have to stop for me for 2 minutes for me to get a picture or adjust lights or set up things. And so I'm very thankful. So I just shake a hand, give a smile, and say thank you.
Andy, do you ever have situations where something with your equipment goes wrong at the worst possible time? You've got 3 minutes to get it right. Have you had some mishaps that have occurred, and the brow is sweating, but you got to keep it cool and you got to figure something out? Have you ever had something like that happen? Or does it go pretty well for the most part?
It goes pretty well. When I'm on those type of assignments, I spend the 24 hours prior to the assignment just making sure that everything is charged, is ready, everything is backed up. Got a couple of hard drives for me for after the fact.
You're not just rolling out of bed that morning and leaving much to chance.
Yeah, at these events, they're depending on you to provide the content for the news. So there can't be any mistakes, actually. There can't be any like mishaps. So man, I've got like, I don't know, man, like 10 charged batteries, 20 data card, SD cards, each, with capacities of between 32 and 128 gigs. So I'm just ready for whatever. And I've got you got to have a cool bag. I use a lot of think tank equipment bags, and they got a pocket in there for everything, and they're just easy to keep up with all your stuff. I always double fist. I've even taken 3 bodies to shoots before, but no less than 2 bodies. And that's kind of like a standard for this type of work.
I guess, yeah, that most people don't realize how much preparation, how many hours of preparation go in, before it's time.
The guy that tells the marketing rep or the photo editor that something like that, I don't think you can do it. I don't think that you can make those mistakes. You just have to be on. You got to, like you asked about the Secret Service guys, they can't make those mistakes. So, I just go in ready to roll.
How much fun is it when you are, like I mentioned, you're photographing Willie Nelson, Leon Bridges, Mariah?
Man, I've been here currently. I've been really, really busy with all of my corporate interest and all of my editorial interest. I just kind of made a promise to myself to get back into the music, which will happen. I'm gonna go pretty hard on that kind of stuff in 2024, just because that's really where I kind of started. The industry standard is 3 songs, first 3 songs, no flash. That's kind of like the rule. So the anticipation of your favorite artist, and sometimes it's an artist that I haven't even worked with before or haven't even listened to before, but man, waiting for that artist to hit the stage and you're in the pit and you're waiting for, get the chance to portrait them, man, I can't explain it, especially if it's somebody iconic and legendary. It's an amazing feeling to be that close to these folks. And they're just human beings like everybody else. But one instance, I'll mention this, B.B. King, he was at a venue here in town. And of course, he's an older artist. Before he passed, he was up there in age, but still amazing to watch. But the venue had to make special preparation for some of the participants that needed ADA access, disabled folks. And it really, usually there's about 2 feet between the lip of the stage and the back of the barrier. So it's plenty of space to walk in the pit. But because they had to, make accommodations for those folks, it caused the pit area to only be a foot wide. So I'm a big boy, man. I squeeze in a good to get good portraits of B.B. King, and I almost was really right in front of him. And I never like to do that, and that's just me personally. I don't ever want to be annoying as a photographer. You really want to be a fly on the wall.
You don't want to be in that bubble.
Yeah, I'm afraid that, man, I'm close to this guy, he's going to call one of his people and get me out of the pit before the 3 seconds. Right in front of him almost. But he was totally cool. We danced. I would crouch low as I could and I always respect the payers. I call them the ticket payers. Those are the folks that paid to be in the front, so I don't want the back of my head to be the first thing you see when you're trying to check out your favorite artist. And man, it was a part of the show, and he was flicking these guitar picks out to the crowd, and they were going wild because when you're BB King, you've got your own personalized guitar pick. They've got your picture on them, they've got your signature on them, and these folks were just going crazy to get these picks. I was so close to him, I held my hand out for one, which is something I never do, and it was the best ever. He placed it in my hand, and I don't know, man. I felt like nothing else did.
You're floating on air.
Yeah. So, and that's happened a couple of times with other artists. Player did something similar at the same venue. So it happens, man. You just got to be ready.
Do you get a chance to talk to any of these artists after the show, or?
They're pretty guarded, and I never want to overstep my boundary with the artist management, or the venue. So if I'm not invited to those places, I usually kind of just chill out. I don't really push the issue on that. But if I'm backstage and I'm usually like a handshake and thank you kind of guy. I'm just like, thanks for coming, thanks for, playing for us tonight. And I just kind of leave it at that. I just kind of leave it as a something that I can remember for the rest of my life, and something that I can, I was there. I don't have to be a loudmouth to prove that I was there, so.
Yeah, you see people sometimes, I guess, as you get older and you don't get the photograph, you don't get the autograph, but you remember it. I've met some musicians and a famous athlete. I'm not going to mention their names, but didn't get a photograph, didn't ask for it, didn't ask for them to sign anything, but just had a moment of conversation and just left them alone. They get enough of that.
Yeah, because man, they played all night, been on stage all night. And the last thing they want to do is get in kind of interview-esque kind of situation.
Right.
They're ready to shower and get on the bus and go to the next gig, or go to the hotel and take a nap, or they're just people like everybody else. And I learned that early, because of the access that I've been granted, and I'll say this: that's what keeps you getting the access. It'll take one time for a tour manager to tell a venue manager that, yeah, that guy right there, you know that. So I just kind of always keep it chill and, play the self-respect card. It's just kind of like, how would I want somebody to approach me if I was in this position? So I just kind of, keep it chill.
Andy, last summer I saw that you spoke at the NABJ convention, the National Association of Black Journalists, and was part of a panel discussion.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. How much fun you had doing something like that?
Man, it was awesome. Just to have that talent in this town was amazing. It was an honor for them to pick us as a venue for such a large event. I was able to reach out to a couple of editors that I had only met through email and over the phone, because they came to the NABJ. So that was in itself one of my favorite editors from the Washington Post. I got to meet him, and there were brunches and tons of social time for us to kind of talk through some things, and it was an honor for them to ask me to do it. And we talked about basically my journey, kind of similar conversation that we're having today. Just kind of talked about how I got started and some things that led to my success. And man, it was great. I can't say anything bad about the NABJ. I'm looking forward to, obviously this year I'll have to travel, but folks came from all over, from as far as Washington State, as down south as lower parts of Florida and Miami, and folks came from everywhere, New York. So it was a great time to network with peers, and talk about what we love is being visual journalists.
Andy, first of all, I just so enjoy this conversation. I feel like that you just have an interest in humanity, in your fellow man, your fellow woman, and
I guess that might have come with getting a little older and having children. You just want to. You're always teaching, and they're always watching. So
now we talked about this. You've got 3 children.
man,
I've got 3 kids, and I think we have the same order where it's 2 boys and then the girl. How much has being a dad shaped your current outlook on your professional life, your home life?
Man, it's great. They embrace what I do, and they know Daddy takes pictures for a living. And especially my oldest, this summer was the first summer that he got a chance to work with me, and it took a little. He's just like, man, you want me to work? It's summer vacation. But then when I told him about the incentive, I paid him. And he made a lot of money this summer. For a 14-year-old kid, and
that's great.
He's totally in. He assisted me on a lot of shoots this summer. The what's in it for him, he definitely that won him over. I only had to fuss at him about getting up the first time and being able to meet all these interesting people in all these interesting situations that he normally would not be in if his dad wasn't a photographer. He really enjoyed it, and obviously being a father, it gave me a time to spend some time with my kid, and it was great, man. He's an assistant with me now whenever I need one and he's not in school. He's totally on it.
We also mentioned before we set up the call here that I want to talk about some guy stuff. I think that it's really important in 2024 now, more than ever, that men are involved in their children's lives, whether they're with the mother or they're not. That guys hang out with guys, either in their professional life or they foster some kind of friendships. Don't have to go have beers at somebody's house every weekend, but just to have male friendships. It's not really always talked about a lot, but I think it's very important for men to be well-rounded and to be good to women, to be respectful of women and even people from different cultures, different backgrounds. It's just something that I've always believed in, and now that I have 2 boys, I want them, and I think you do too, to see their dad doing something that, either they want to emulate or they at least think, hey, that's pretty cool. My dad's a photographer, and that you take them to breakfast, you sit down and you eat with them, and you put the phone down, you look them in the, get the eyeball time.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts?
Man, I think it's really important. I think that we're old school, so we just try to mix a lot of those old school ideals to our kids. I'll never forget, obviously I told you about how things slowed down during COVID, but we were just very committed. Me and my wife were really committed about keeping our kids mentally sharp, and spiritually sharp. As far as being stuck in a house, we made sure that we stayed outside, man. We did a lot of camping and a lot of outdoors stuff and a lot of cooking outside. And
that's good.
One day it was raining. It was so rainy. It was just raining, and the kids were sad because we had planned. We just got ordered Frisbees from Amazon, and they were so bummed. So I looked out, and there was no lightning. It was just good rain. And I was just like, have you guys ever played in the rain? And we just went outside and just played Frisbee in the rain. And it was, I've got pictures of it. It was just one of our, I don't know, it was one of those moments where you as a father, you're doing it right, when your kids are playing in the rain. And that's just something that when I was little, we wouldn't have even asked. We would just, as long as it was safe, no lightning or anything. But it's really important that you take time for your family. And anytime I can, the kids always know I'm up here at my studio now. And it, for all practical purposes, it's just a room, with the bathroom. But they know they can come up here and grab the remote and watch kid shows on the Roku, or there's plenty of cool things to snack on, and there's plenty of cool drinks and cold waters in the fridge. So I'm
They know that they can get around you, even if you got something you got to focus on for a little bit. They could be with dad.
Yeah, I want them to always be. I never want them to be. I never want to have to beg them to come up here. So they might show up. Mom might bring them up here any minute today and leave them, and they know that there's a park across the street. I'm off Highland Avenue, so it's really pleasant, up here. It's a really cool scene.
Now, your daughter, like mine, is your baby. Andy,
Man,
we'll talk about this guy stuff, but let me tell you something. I think you might be able to relate. When I hold my baby girl, it's like, I'm not even saying this right, but it's like a lightning bolt through my heart. It's just, there's something about when a dad with his baby girl, that you are wrapped up with her for the rest of her life, rest of your life. And you feel, I don't want to call it a weight, but you definitely know, all right, you better be on your A game, buddy, because she's going to look up to you. And if you start making a mess of yourself, which you're not going to, you're not, I'm not, but girls don't need that. They don't need their dads to disappear. They don't need their dads to, I've dated women that do not have good histories with their fathers, and it changes the course of their life. But not to get so deep there, but how tender is that relationship? You remember when she was a little baby? And
it's amazing. Like, I can't stress that enough. It's just like, she gives me everything I need as far as, just, I don't mean to be cliche, but the whole, hey, daddy, when I walk in the door, the hug, she just knows that it's hard for me to tell her no, and that I've got her back, and she's a budding artist. She draws, and she's 6, and she's got her own little portfolio desk and place where she's got all her crayons and color pencils and stencils and construction paper, and she's a mess and a beauty at the same time. She's so amazing. Like man, you can get my heart's starting to beat fast. She knows that she's my heart, and the boys do too. But man, it's just something special about the relationship that you have with your only daughter.
That's right.
Yeah, man. She hadn't picked up a camera yet, but she's definitely on her way. We call it, she's our little artist, and she's, I don't know if they Blue Dog. Are you with that?
Say it again.
I think it's George Rodriguez. He's from Louisiana, and he draws the blue dog. It's just a blue dog. She's never seen this, but it reminds me. She does cats. She does like these cat faces, and man, they're amazing. Like, she does them with polka dots. She does them all kinds of ways. I'll have to show that to you. But she draws all kinds of stuff. She does dogs. She does all kinds of animals. But they're amazing. Like, I'm really proud of her, of the way she's advanced her art at such a young age. But, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, so there's that.
Yeah, and you just got to be, like I am with my kids, you start seeing those traits for either they got from you or your side of the family or your wife, and you just try to foster a good environment for them to explore those interests. Andy, real quick here, I wish we could talk for another hour. I'm just so enjoying this. I got a few random questions I always throw in at the end. Well, first of all, let me just run through. So everybody listening, Andy and I first met would have been the early spring 1999. We worked at music stores. We were part of a franchise. And I didn't know it at the time, but what a year for music. We could talk a lot about, it was CD Warehouse, just how cool it was back then to have a record store where people met and talked about music. We don't quite have it the same way now, but listen to some of these releases from that year. Britney Spears makes her debut.
Mm-hmm.
Christina Aguilera. Blink 182 comes out on the scene in a huge way. Basically just recharges that power pop genre. The Coachella festivals, the first one. Korn. I didn't remember this one. Korn's the first rock band to perform at the Apollo. Napster is launched that year. Backstreet Boys is a big year for that music. Lauryn Hill takes home 5 Grammys. The first female artist to take home 5 Grammys in one night. I mean, the list goes on. You've got, I think Nas had a couple releases. What a fun time. What are your thoughts when you look back on just working in a record store at the dawn of the 21st century? And
Man, I think it was really cool, and I miss it. I miss it dearly. I think that the music industry has changed so drastically. I actually have a moment when I really remember it changing, and it kind of made me sad. It might have been Tool's Lateralis. I ordered what I thought was enough. CDs, the day, the release day.
Enough CDs? You thought you'd ordered enough CDs for that day?
That release was a big release. It was Lateralis. I think it came out 2001, maybe, or I don't know, around that time, 2002. And we just slammed through like a case of CDs is 30, if you remember that.
That's right. Those boxes, rectangular.
Yep. There's 30 in a bushel or whatever you want to call it, case. And I think we did 3 cases and just blew through them. And I will never forget doing a cash pool. Went across the street. They had just opened a Target, and I think they were selling the CD for maybe at our cost or $1 above our cost. And I sent somebody, because I hated turning people away, and since we weren't really losing any money on the buy, I sent him over there to buy like 10 copies of that CD. I know the people at Target were looking at him crazy, but that's when I knew that day made me sad, because I knew that, as a CD store and as an entity in business, we couldn't sustain it. I knew that something was going to change. And when I was able to buy at cost CD across the street from a big box retailer,
the days were numbered.
That was a sad. And surely enough, within like 2 years after that, I think my location closed. I can't really remember that far back. Getting old, Dan.
We've got a record store here in Pensacola called the Music Box, and you walk in, and man, does it not feel like I said, 1999, 2000, 01, all over again. I don't think they burn incense a lot, but you kind of smell where it used to be, fired up, and there's used CDs. There's a huge vinyl collection. I love going in there. The later model vehicles, if you go buy a new car now, they're usually not going to have a CD player. I still was rocking the CDs until about 2020, like about 3 years ago. I kind of miss it. I mean, you don't want to be driving 65 miles an hour and taking out CDs in a one disc changer, but
I just got a new vehicle, and there's you're not streaming or listening to satellite radio. You don't have a way to do anything. There's no cassette. There's no CD player at all.
I feel like the CDs they sounded better. There's just a lot. I don't know. I play Apple Music on the road.
Yep.
It sounds pretty good. Maybe there's not a difference. Maybe it's all in my head.
I don't think. I think that it sounds. I won't say better. I just think it sounds different.
Yeah.
What was on the back of the nomenclature? The AAD. You remember that?
Right.
Kids these days, that means. So I do remember listening to CDs that were AAD. That's analog recording, analog mix, digital master. That's what the letters stand for. I do remember a time when I would buy a CD and it would be DVD. Now those clearly sounded different, and that's crazy. Like you have the ending digital platform, the CD, the compact disc, that had its original masters recorded in an analog fashion. And then as technology advanced, the master was digital from the start, so that your mix was digital as well as your final playback media. So I do remember seeing the A's disappear from the back of the CD, and then I remember it not even being a thing at all. You could buy a CD and the nomenclature was just not on there at all, which, makes me feel old.
I think the first CDs I bought, it was not until 1995, I remember, because I was buying cassettes up until my first car. So I was 16 in 95. Do you remember the first CD that you purchased?
Oh, man, yeah, absolutely. It was probably a little earlier than that. I got my first CD player for Christmas. 90, man, I'm telling my age here. 89 or 90, man. It was a big deal. They were really expensive back then.
I remember my older brother coming home with those long boxes that they came in.
Yep. I still have the original reprise. I'm a big Jimi Hendrix fan. And I have still in cellophane plastic, still wrapped, the entire discography reprise, Warner Brothers, Jimi Hendrix, all his releases, Axis Bowl of Love, Smash Hits. I mean, just all of them. Still sealed in the long box. I can't wait to.
Wow.
They're in the garage now, and I can't wait to dig them up and show them to my kids, because the long box was marketing's answer to, I think, the album covers, LPs. Just a big graphic cardboard thing. But the thing about it is, I don't remember people saving them. Like, I got so good that I could feel the crease of the CD in the bottom of the box and just rip it apart, rip it right through the middle and get the CD out. But since I'm a big Hendrix fan, I decided that'd be something that I still have them.
Man.
I got a few Prince.
A few who? Which one?
Prince.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about Prince on the last episode or a couple episodes back.
Man.
He was. I got the Diamonds and Pearls cassette. That was still when I was in middle school.
Yep. Yeah, I got to see him 17 times. I got to photograph him once.
You'll never forget that.
Never, man. It was at Essence Festival, and he's one of my favorite artists. So it was pretty tough to turn that down, but he personally approves all of his. That's what I was told. And he personally approves all of his selects. So whenever we shoot it, edit it, and send it over to his people, I heard a rumor that he actually puts his eyes on it. And that instance in New Orleans some years back, it was at the Essence Festival. He was probably about, I don't know, maybe 200 feet away from where I was editing. So he had a show to do after his main performance during Essence. He did a show at the House of Blues on Decatur Street in New Orleans in the French Quarter. And his people were already, obviously the group and everything was already there. He's a superstar. They just whiz him down there and he walks in like a superstar is supposed to do. But after his main performance at Essence, the team that I was working with, we were doing some of our selects, and he actually was in the building, after the crowd from Essence had dispersed and went home and stuff. But yeah, sometimes it's pretty hard, depending on if it's an artist that I have loved all my life. Yeah, I do tend to get a little starstruck, but that's just normal.
That really is just
man.
The experience of a lifetime. You talk about Prince.
You get excited.
I mean, he is he was a living legend in his time.
Yeah, man.
And now he's one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, I was his last tour before he passed. I was preparing to hit some of the shows and try to get approved for some of the shows, and I had a chance to shoot him in Atlanta, and just some personal family stuff came up where I think my little girl had a recital or something, and I couldn't make it. And the next thing I heard, he was gone. So I was a little bummed about that because all of my buddies were kind of ragging me about coming over to just hang out, and so the plan was to shoot it and get regular seats. And after my time in the pit, I was going to go and hang out with my friends at that show at the Fox. He did 2 nights at the Fox, I think. And my friends were like, we can get you tickets. And I totally got bummed just because I had something else to do. And then he was gone, But I got a chance to see Prince 17 times, man. So in my life, there's no regrets.
So when you worked that assignment, when you shot him, this was not long before he passed, or within a few years?
Yeah, it was. I can't really. I'm trying to think about the time period. He took up a residency in Vegas, I think, for a while, or was doing some shows in Vegas, and I was going to try to catch him there. And then he started doing his Man and Piano, which basically was kind of like an acoustic show with just him singing some of his big hits with piano. He was just basically sitting at the piano playing. And I was just like, man, that'd be the most awesome time to shoot him. He'll be sitting down. I was just thinking about, a lot of photographers will tell you that they make the pictures in their heads before they take the pictures. That's definitely a thing that I do. And so I was just like, man, this would be easy. He won't be moving around. There won't be a band. There'll just be a really good spotlight on him. But I just never got the opportunity to do it, in that capacity. I wanted to hit a bunch of shows on that tour just to make sure I got a really iconic shot of him, but it just never happened, man.
One thing with Prince, he was just on a different level. Sometimes people perceive those mega stars as unapproachable, prickly, maybe difficult to actually interact with. But I heard it came out after he died that he was quite philanthropic, I guess you would say. Like, he made charitable contributions that he didn't really want any attention attached to it. Some of that stuff came out, and
I think all of that's true. I don't know for sure. I'd have to, read it with my own. I believe you, and I definitely have heard that too. That he was just, I thought you were going to ask if I ever had an opportunity to be in the same room with him, but
yeah,
that would be no. That'd be no. I've never been in the same room with
I was
the closest.
Maybe going to ask that, but it was like, I've always heard that Prince is like most people only get like a few layers away.
Well, in essence, usually have the media situated in the visitors' locker room, which is, they've got like a place where they can review films, and they've got all of these little, they almost look like little closets for all the players. So we were pretty cozy in there. He was on the other side of the hall in the New Orleans Saints dressing room, which I didn't get a chance to go over there and really check it out as much as I wanted to. All the years that I've shot Essence, I've just never been over there to just really. We had to eat over there at one year, but it's definitely nicer than the visitors' locker room. But yeah, he was probably the walk from one side of the hallway to the other side is probably about 200-300 feet. So he was pretty close. We had pretty strict rules not to disturb and just kind of hang back. So
have you been in a situation where you're not asking to meet the subject and you're doing your job, and maybe there's an interim period there where you're grabbing something to eat, and someone, just because of their impression of you, maybe has said, "Hey, Andy, come on, I want to introduce you to so and so." Does that really happen?
It rarely happens. If you're on like a marketing team and you're working for an artist, and in passing they've seen you and they know that you are super professional, and maybe, but usually these guys, security and marketing, they have an assignment and they pretty much stick to the, they stick to the plan. They don't, when you start breaking the rules like that, anything can happen. So
Yeah.
it rarely happens, man, like that. It'd be cool. It'd be cool if it did often, but yeah, the normal run of things is if you're not supposed to have access to a certain area, you just stay away.
Sure. Andy, do you miss just handling the jewel case, just popping it open? I miss it. I miss driving and having a couple CDs in the passenger seat.
Yeah, man. The Case Logic.
Yeah.
Remember that thing?
Oh, yeah. I kind of got to where I never had the visor CD thing going, but I had some in the middle console. But I really got to where I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave the house and grab 3 or 4 CDs, and this is going to be the theme for today or for the week.
All the time. I do miss that. I do, but you can do that with Apple Music playlist, and it's just a sign of the time, but it's not the same. It seems too easy. It seems,
it is
like it's too easy to
it's not really I don't think it's anywhere close to as satisfying when you just tap the download button. You're like, oh, okay. Well, that's in my collection now, but
right. It's not.
Gone is the experience of driving to the store, walking to that section, the metal section, the R&B section, the pop, whatever, thumbing through, finding it, or if maybe it's featured if it's a big release, and then opening it up, taking all that plastic. Maybe it's a good thing we don't have all that, but the little sticky barcode on the top that you have to peel off. It's a lot of fun stuff with that experience. It just, I like the Apple Music. I'm an Apple Music subscriber. I mean, it makes it pretty easy.
But not as fun.
Not as fun, no. Hey, a couple really, really random questions here. When was the last time that I haven't done this since I was a kid, I don't think. Well, no, it's been a little while. Let me start the question over. What was the last time that you got a really good bubble gum bubble going, where you just blow it out as wide as it can go without popping?
It's been a long. I tell you, my kid brought some. What was it? Is it Big Chew or I don't know?
Big League Chew.
That's it.
You get a good one going on that.
Brought some of that home from a party at school or something, and I did that, and it just blew their mind. We spent the afternoon me trying to teach them how to, and I was just like, hey man, I was telling my son, I was like, it's a rite of passage, you got to do it, and you can't get it all over your face. Like, you gotta learn it. And sure enough, for hours, they ate the whole bag. And, we got a big rule, don't swallow it,
What about, all right, here's another one. I don't know how these questions come to me and why I even select them. Because I don't even know, like, they might bomb. I've had a couple where I've asked and they just fall kind of flat, but I try them out. Old-timey pajamas with the nightcap. Maybe like 19th century, early 20th century. If your wife ordered something like that for you for Christmas, are you give it a shot? Or do you like to? I don't like to sleep with a lot on. I'm clothed, but I don't like to have the top and the bottom and the pants, and I don't do all that. But
man, I'm a big fan of just t-shirt, and I like a good pair of nice, comfy pajama pants or pajama shorts.
Yeah, on the cold nights.
They don't really have to be themed. My wife will just run to Target and get me an extra large of some plaid business or whatever. It doesn't have to be anything cool. My kids still wear the cool pajamas with hoodies and the footsies. You remember?
Yeah. We still have some of those in circulation.
They still rock those, but no, man, I kind of keep it simple too. I just whatever they have at Target or Walmart, no SpongeBob or anything like that. I tend to go for traditional plaid or solid colors. I think I got about 3 in rotation, 3 different pairs.
How about this? Have you ever, I mean, everyone has, but do you remember a time where you sent a text message and it auto-corrected too fast, or you hit send before you saw it, and you're like, oh, shoot, I just hit send, and it was just way off of what you meant to say? Does that happen much or not so much?
Happens all the time. So you got to make sure you're always being sweet.
One time, and this is years ago, not even with my wife, it was with the girlfriend, but I was trying to tell her, she was telling me something, good that happened, and I was replying. I wasn't that great. I'm still not great at text shorthand, but I replied, GFY, and I meant for it to read, good for you. And she sent me like the angry emoji back, or it was maybe before emoji. She said, what are you trying to tell me?
What is GFY?
I can't really say it on the podcast, but it's, go F yourself. But she was onto it. She knew all the shorthand, and that's one that sticks out. Most of the other ones have been able to explain away, but
I wouldn't have been offended because I wouldn't have even known.
Well, Andi, if people want to reach out to you for an assignment, what's the best way to contact Andi Rice?
Man, probably my social media is always a good place to start. All of my social channels are the same. Rice Andi, which is RICEANDI, is where you can find me on X, where you can find me on Facebook, where you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn with Rice Andi. It's just RICEANDI, Rice Andi with an I.
Yeah, folks, go to the Instagram page, check out the body of work. It speaks for itself. LinkedIn, look at the endorsements, the great reviews that Andi's received from the impressions he's made over the years. I'm just so glad we could do this today, Andi. Thanks for making the time.
Man, all the time, dude. When you called, I was 190% in. So it's always good to hook up with an old friend. I'll let this be maybe the last little plug, but it's such an important thing, man. We were talking about being fathers and dudes, and currently I'm working on a project. It's called Old Friends. I'm going to probably push it out at the beginning of the year, or I've been working on it for a couple of months, and it's basically to highlight and encourage the importance of just good friends. Good friends always have your back. They're never going to let you slip up on life. So I've been doing portraits of just friends that I've known all my life, that have always been in my corner and have always supported me with all of my endeavors. And man, you fit that plug. So you slide into town, please come by the studio and we'll jam out. I've got a small PA here, man. So we can make it get really loud.
Let's do it.
Yeah, just come in and sit for that and be a part of that project. And I chose black and white as the medium for it just because some of us aren't really as secure with our appearance in our late age, just some of us. So to protect those people that are concerned with that, I chose black and white just because there's nothing more beautiful than just a plain classic black and white portrait. So yeah, I've shot about 50 people so far, all true and tried old friends, and that's it. That's the project. It's called Old Friends. So when you come to town, Dan, I want you to be a part of it.
Andi, I would love to. I would be honored.
Yeah, man.
Can't wait to see you again. All right, Andi. Well,
man, it's been a pleasure. You can't see the big smile on my face, but it's been like I've been trying to speak through the smile on my face. I really enjoyed this.
Nothing like old friends, like you said.
Old friends are the best.
I said it a couple weeks ago, and folks, if you're listening and you got someone out there and you didn't burn the bridge, and it's not like there's not a reason to talk, maybe don't call them, don't cold call, but send a text message. If it's Happy New Year, you got an excuse to do it. You just never know. You just never know where it could lead. They remember you. Right. people listening, you know, if you left a mark and you had a good bond with somebody, they didn't just forget you. They know, they remember. So pick up the phone again or get your fingers tapping again.
Yeah.
But this has been great, Andi. And folks, we will see you next week on the Dan Time Podcast. Again, if you want to be a part of the show or you know someone who might, dantimepod@gmail.com. I'm at dantimepod on the socials. Appreciate you listening. You guys have a great week. Go out there and make a difference in your area of expertise. All right. Thank you, Andi.
You're welcome, man.
All right. If you love that episode, if you're enjoying the Dan Time Podcast, be sure to download and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Hope you have a great week. I'll see you next Sunday.